figures for you. First one we haven't seen now for the past 12 months. I think a lot of you know him. It's Steve Jones, who for most of his life has been a dairy farmer. He has managed very large dairy herds. And Steve's got a few words to say.
Hello everyone, lovely to be here. Just a quick resume of the things that I've done. I've been involved in the organic dairy industry as a herd manager. Okay. Okay, is that better? Is that better? Can you hear? Okay, fine. Now, I've been involved in many aspects of the dairy industry. I've been involved in small family dairy farms in this country. I've been involved in the organic dairy industry. I've been involved in the commercial industry. And I've been involved in the mega dairy industry in the Far East, in the Middle East. And I've worked in Scandinavia. I first got involved with the badger cull in 2011. My mum had had a stroke, and I was looking after her at home, and I knew the ridiculous nature of this badger cull, the policy that they were going to reel out over the country. So I wrote a letter, and I sent that letter to the Country Life magazine, the Financial Times, and it was published in the local press. And that letter, when it went into the Financial Times, hit straight like an arrow to the heart of the NFU. And it was a letter that spoke about the basic hygiene of water management, whereby troughs were left vacant during the winter time in fields, and then the cattle would be indoors, and after a time during the spring they would turn the cattle out, and those troughs would be infected with bovine TB from the previous autumn, maybe have dead birds in which carry avian TB, dead rats, and no one ever cleaned those troughs out. No one ever cleaned them out. And that was the one thing that I thought, that this is just ridiculous, because I see this happening everywhere, but it never happened on the farms that I was managing. So that went straight to the heart of the NFU. A little bit later on, I wrote a comment in Comment is Free for The Guardian, and that one, not in this farmer's name, that one was broadcast widely. And there I spoke of other issues to do with the dairy sector. You see, bovine TB is not a disease that is unmanageable on farms. Bovine TB is a production disease. When I worked in the Middle East, I worked in Saudi Arabia, I was a calf unit manager. And I reared disease-resistant calves. And if anybody want to know how to do that, I'll let you know, I can tell you how to do that. Disease-resistant animals. Later on, I was responsible for the herd health and the hygiene with 1,000 cows. 1,000 cows, milked 3 times a day. We started off at 17,000 litres. Now that's a huge yield for cows, 17,000 litres. I know a lot of you may not believe in dairy farming, but you know it doesn't matter what system you've got, you can do it properly. It doesn't matter what animal you care for, you give that animal whatever it requires. Whether it's a goldfish, you don't keep a goldfish in a bowl, you put it in a pond. And it's the same with dairy cows. If you fulfill their needs, they will perform. And cows are the most fantastic creatures. Our yields rose to 18,000 and 19,000 yields, litres per annum per cow. The average in this country is 7.5. We rose to 20,000 and we rose to 21,000 litres. And that was without any antibiotic use. Now that takes management skill. That isn't something you can learn. It's probably something you're blessed with. And I was blessed to do that. When I left Saudi Arabia, I joined a company based in Salisbury. And that company is still going today, a farm management company. I worked for them. They managed thousands of cows, and they put me in the forefront of turning around underproducing problem herds. And I made a living out of TB. I made a living out of bovine TB. Once someone said that to me online, and it upset me. But it's true, and I'm proud of it, because I didn't make a living out of increasing bovine TB, I made a living out of curing it. On the farms that I visited during that time, which ranged from Cornwall, as far north as Powys, and as far east as the University Farm in Reading, Berkshire, a lot of those farms had huge amounts of problems, the same problems that we've got today: lameness, mastitis, infertility, and the result cause of that is other problems. One of those, in fact, probably one of the most minuscule problems of all, and that's bovine TB. One of the most preventable problems on farm is bovine tuberculosis. Once you cure the lameness problems, the mastitis clears up because cows lie down more when they're lame. You decrease the stress levels so you can get them back in calf. And why would people say, well, how come infertility in dairy cattle causes bovine TB? Quite simple. Because a lot of farms that cannot replace their herd numbers, if they're losing cows at an early age, they're unable to regenerate their herd numbers, so they have to buy cattle in. And unfortunately, that's the case. We're losing these cows at a young age. In 2009, the Animal Health Authority, as it was then, flagged the concerns that dairy cattle were dying at the age of 5.5. A dairy cow has a calf at the age of 2 years. And with each year she has a calf. She reaches her peak lactation when she's had 6 calves. Then she really comes into her own, and if she's properly looked after, she excels. Now, unfortunately, that 2009 record has been broken, because now our cows are only living to be 5 years of age. And that's a dramatic drop of a half a year in that length of time. So there's something wrong. And that problem is due to impoverishment of the industry. Farmers just aren't making any money anymore. This government, they instigated this bovine TB plan. Any idea why it probably was? It's probably because they knew that milk quotas were going to finish in 2015. Milk quotas no longer exist. Farmers are allowed to produce as much milk as they want. But the only problem is the world is awash with milk. We're awash with milk. And this is why farmers are going out of production left, right and centre. There's still ways of making a living at dairy farming. I managed a farm just 6 miles from here. The highest yielding farm in this country, Ireland and Wales. There was one in Scotland higher than us. But our cows had longevity. Longevity is the barometer of how well we look after our cows. And it's a tragedy that they're carrying on this badger cull, because it's just nonsensical. There is no need for it. I've managed cows and only managed cows in TB hotspot areas. That's why everyone is shut down. And over a period of maybe a month, certainly 2 months, suddenly there's no bovine TB on our farm. We share the same badgers. We share them. We share them out in the fields. The same badgers go into the neighbouring farms, yet we're bovine TB clear. And there's a reason for that. It's down to management. When I went around the country, taking on underproductive farms, there were issues of lameness, there were issues of mastitis, there were issues of impoverishment because of infertility in the cattle herd. They were buying cows in. There was very often a high rat population on the farms. And very often the bovine TB test itself was not monitored properly by the farmer. Every bovine TB test should be monitored. And here's another thought. You've probably all been inoculated for bovine TB. You probably won't get bovine TB unless you get very, very low in your health and you're exposed to bovine TB, you're exposed to tuberculosis. Most of the TB in this country comes from migrants coming from abroad. They're bringing it in. And that's a huge problem for the cattle industry, because when we test cattle, we're testing cattle to see if they show a propensity to having resistance to bovine TB. And those cattle that have got resistance, natural resistance to bovine TB, are being culled. This is selective breeding gone totally the wrong way. The veterinary profession agree with this, especially now, because the veterinary profession have been taken off the responsibility of bovine TB testing, so they're coming out in support of this. So there's huge problems. And just one last story. one last story. I want to tell you what causes all the problems that we have in the cattle industry, dairy and beef. And there's this one story that I have from Saudi Arabia. Was it about this time of year, in the 1980s? It was during the month of Ramadan, which has actually taken place now. I don't think it's finished. At the end of the month of Ramadan, there is a massive feast. Now, we would store up cattle that we needed to sell until the end of the month of Ramadan came, and then we could sell those cattle at any price because they needed them, because there was this massive feast. We sold 2 truckloads of cows during the June of that year. And they came to be picked up by 2 open-top Mercedes wagons, as the type they have in the Middle East. And the drivers were told to take them straight to the abattoir, straight there, because cows aren't like camels that can extract 20% of the moisture out of their blood. Cows dehydrate very quickly, as we do. Those drivers went outside of the compound and they slept under their trucks because they'd been up all night and they sleep during the day. They came back several hours later and the cows were dying in the back of the truck. And all we could do with those animals was hose them down. Hose them down. And from that day on, I realised that what causes these problems with all the problems that we have in the cattle industry is ignorance and arrogance. And have I got proof for that? Yes, I've got proof for that. In 2012, I met with my MP, Mark Harper, and we had a long discussion. Yeah, boom, that's right. He lives 1.5 miles from where I live. We had a long discussion. Yeah, it's all right, I'm moving out. We had a long discussion over all the problems in the cattle industry, and he was busy taking notes. He didn't know what to say. He said, I've never heard this before. I've never heard of this before, but I'm going to look into it. I'll get back to you. That was 2012, October of that year. This is 2015, and he still stays out of my way because he has no answers. Now that's arrogance. That's ignorance, and that is arrogance. Our lovely dairy cows. You know why they get bovine TB? We live in a horsey country. Just a few quick facts. I mean, I could stay here all day and talk about this. The dairy cow looks like a horse. It's about the same size as a horse. Why do you think we don't ride horses in the Grand National? Any idea? I'll tell you why. The cow is made up of a massive rumen. I talked earlier about rearing dairy calves. Is that better? Oh, that's better, isn't it? Hey, thank you. Shall I do it all again?
Yeah, start again.
No, okay. Anyway, why do cows get bovine TB anyway? I'll tell you why. A cow has got a 250% greater oxygen requirement than a horse. Now, isn't that amazing? Yet a cow has only got 1/3 the lung capacity. And this is why they pick up infections in the lung very quickly. When you rear calves, disease-resistant calves, you make sure that they never, ever get lung problems. If you have any lung problems in cattle these days because of antibiotic resistance, you can't cure them. Pneumonia, bovine respiratory diseases, recognized in hot countries abroad, but not recognized enough in this country. If you do not rear calves properly, with properly ventilated buildings, they succumb to all sorts of lung problems, including bovine TB in adult life. When I came back to this country, I always used a stethoscope, and you can listen to any ailing cow with any problem, and she'll have rasping in her lungs from lung disease that she probably caught when she was a calf, a juvenile. Well, that's just incredible. Isn't that amazing? And this is the problem. So many people do not realize just how to manage these wonderful animals properly. And it can be done. So I just hope and I pray. I just hope and I pray that God is going to intervene in this and we can just sort this thing out. Because, honest, this is just hideous. So I'm happy to get involved whenever I can, but I'm busy at the moment with my own business. And I just wanted to enlighten you all that many farmers think the same as me. There are many farmers that have not been shut down with bovine TB. They know how to manage their herds properly. and they know the secrets of being a good herd manager. So thank you very much. No one to take on now. Should we have a singing dance or your turn?